So, Hare Krishna, good morning everyone. So, today we'll be reading from Canto 3, Chapter 9, entitled Brahma's Prayers for Creative Energy, and we are reading text 41. So, before we start the Bhagavatam, we'll recite the invocation prayers to the Lord. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Purtena tapasa yagner Taner yoga samadhina Radham nishaya sampumsam Mat pritis tattva vinmatam Purtena tapasa yagner Daner yoga samadhina Radham nishaya sampumsam Mat pritis tattva vinmatam. Word for word. Purtena, by traditional good work. Tapasa, by penances. Yagne, by sacrifices. Dane, by charities. Yoga, by mysticism. Samadhina, by trance. Radham, success. Nishreyasam, ultimately beneficial. Pumsam, of the human being. Mat, of me. Priti, satisfaction. Tattvavit, expert transcendentalist. Matam, opinion. Translation. It is the opinion of expert transcendentalists that the ultimate goal of performing all traditional good works, penances, sacrifices, charities, mystic activities, trances, etc., is to invoke my satisfaction. So please repeat. It is the opinion of expert transcendentalists that the ultimate goal of performing all traditional good works, penances, sacrifices, charities, mystic activities, trances, etc., is to invoke my satisfaction. So this is the Lord saying that. So Purport by Srila Prabhupada. There are many traditionally pious activities in human society, such as altruism, philanthropy, nationalism, internationalism, charity, sacrifice, penance, and even meditation in trance. And all of them can be fully beneficial only when they lead to the satisfaction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The perfection of any activity, social, political, religious, or philanthropic, is to satisfy the Supreme Lord. This secret of success is known to the devotee of the Lord, as exemplified by Arjuna on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. As a good, non-violent man, Arjuna did not want to fight with his kinsmen, but when he understood that Krishna wanted the fight and had arranged it at Kurukshetra, he gave up his own satisfaction and fought for the satisfaction of the Lord. That is the decision for all intelligent men. One's only concern should be to satisfy the Lord by one's activities. If the Lord is satisfied by an action, whatever it may be, then it is successful. Otherwise, it is simply a waste of time. That is the standard of all sacrifice, penance, austerity, mystic trance, and other good and pious work. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhagavatam Goswami Namani Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Namaste Saraswati Devi Kunjani. So I seek the blessings of all the devotees that I can speak something that is beneficial to myself and to all of us, and that we can apply this knowledge that Srila Prabhupada has kindly brought to us. The main point that I got from Prabhupada's purport is that the prime goal of one's life is to satisfy the Supreme Lord by one's activities. And it's actually mentioned here that that's the secret of success and the full benefit is achieved. So Prabhupada mentioned here various pious activities, philanthropy, sacrifices. So we see in the world there's the World Health Organization and the United Nations and UNICEF. They go out and they go and help the people in war-torn countries and children who are starving, or even animal rights people. They want to save the whales and all these activists. So there is some benefit there. It says there in Prabhupada says in the purport that it has temporary benefit. It says everything that is not connected to the Lord is simply a waste of time because there's only temporary benefit. Just like if someone is hungry and we feed that man, and then at the end of his life, because we are in the mature world, we are all subject to birth, death, old age, and disease. Even if we living here in Australia or New Zealand or America, the so-called first world countries, we can't escape death. So that is the problem of life, the main problem: birth, death, old age, and disease. So by doing these philanthropic activities, pious activities, it just binds us more and more in this karmic reaction. So we do good things and we get a good body, good health, and we're born in a opulent family, a wealthy country. Then we reap the results of our so-called pious activities. But Prabhupada mentions in his books that it's all bad. Even good karma is also, everything's all bad if it's not connected to Krishna. So the example that I got from this, I was listening to the BVL Bhaktivedanta Library, and in the chapter, Canto 1, Chapter 8, which is entitled Prayers by Queen Kunti, it talks about how Krishna caused Yudhishthira Maharaj to perform 3 Ashwamedha Yagyas. So that's a pious activity, horse sacrifice, and they come out with a better rejuvenated body, and it's a pious activity, it's a sacrifice. But we hear that Lord Indra, he performed hundreds of Ashwamedha Yagyas, but it says there that Krishna caused Yudhishthira Maharaj to perform these 3 Ashwamedha Yagyas, and he became famous all over the world. Unlike Indra, he wasn't as famous as Yudhishthira Maharaj, because Yudhishthira Maharaj was 100% surrendered to the Lord, and that is the perfection of his activities. He was doing political activities and it was connected to Krishna. So even social activities, philanthropic activities, just like we have the food for life, even though it's feeding the hungry people, the suffering people, or like Ukraine, the devotees are going out feeding the people in need, not just the devotees. They are doing transcendental activity. It's not just feeding the stomach and helping the physical body, it's helping the soul. Because by eating food that is blessed and that's offered to the Lord, our heart becomes purified, and gradually we make progress on the path of bhakti, of devotional service, and then ultimately in one lifetime we'll have the opportunity to go back home, back to Krishna, where there's no birth, there's no death, there's no old age, and there's no disease. We are Satchid Ananda. We again regain our Satchidananda body, our spiritual body, which is full of eternality, bliss, and knowledge. And another example that is helping the body, but not just the body, but the soul, is the example of the Bhaktivedanta hospital that is in India. So they are not only treating the physical illness of the people, they are treating the disease of birth, death, old age, and disease by giving spiritual knowledge. So it's not that in the prayers by Queen Kunti in chapter 8 of Canto 1, she says, please, she's praying to Krishna that please take away this attachment to my family, the skin disease. So she's not talking about the attachment to devotees. The Prabhupada explains in the purport very clearly that she was identifying with her sons, the 5 Pandavas, on the bodily platform. Of course, we understand that when Krishna puts his devotees under, he covers them over. It's not that they under illusion, but they are shown as an example. Prabhupada mentions that just like in India, the mother-in-law teaches the daughter-in-law by teaching the daughter, and the daughter doesn't get disturbed or upset when the mother chastises her or tries to teach her the proper way of cooking or cleaning the house, because she knows that she's doing it out of love and there's a purpose behind it, because there's no, the relationship with the daughter-in-law, she's coming from another family, so it's not that close bond, and sometimes there could be friction. So that's how the Lord works. It's not that sometimes the devotees are put into suffering. So it talks about how in the next chapter 9 of Canto 1, where the departure of Bhishma Dev, it clearly gives that example of the mother teaching the daughter through the teaching the daughter-in-law through the daughter, is that Bhishma Dev, he's a great pure devotee of the Lord, but he went through so much suffering because Krishna wanted to teach. There were many lessons to learn, but one of the lessons was that Krishna wanted to teach that great devotees, even though they go through so many tribulations, so much suffering, they don't blame Krishna or they don't blame Krishna's devotees. They accept it on the chin, and then they show that despite all the suffering and everything, they still surrender to Krishna. And that is the quality of a pure devotee. He or she never blames the Lord for our suffering. So when we suffer, we understand, like the verse, Tattenu kampam susamikshamanam punjana evatma. So it talks about how the devotee goes on serving the Lord despite the suffering. We have disease. Now we hear many devotees, especially now, many older devotees, even young devotees, are leaving their body because of cancer and old age. So it's not that the devotee, none of us can escape death, even though we are practicing devotees, because we have a material body. But we are so fortunate that by Prabhupada's mercy, we have this knowledge of how we can utilize this body in service to Krishna, in connection with Krishna, and that Prabhupada mentions is the secret of success. When we try to please Krishna in whatever activities we do, and we all are individual, just like there's no 2 snowflakes that are the same. We all have our own individual natures and qualities. And when we ask the question of who am I, who is God, and what is my purpose in this life, what is my mission, and we take guidance from Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra, so the scriptures, from the devotees, from the spiritual masters, and we engage according to our psychophysical nature, then we are successful. Just like the example of in the Ramayana, Hanuman, he was helping to build the breach to Lanka, and then there's the example, there's variations. There's sometimes the example of a squirrel or sometimes of a spider. And the spider is taking small dust flakes or small pebbles, putting it in the ocean to build a bridge to go and save Mother Sita. And then Hanuman said to the squirrel or the spider that, what are you doing? Get out of my way. I'm doing big service here. I'm building the bridge for Lord Ram. And then Lord Ram, not that Hanuman was proud, but Krishna is teaching through his devotees because they don't take things personally. So Lord Ram, he chastised Hanuman. He said that this little spider, squirrel, is doing just as much service as you, even though externally it may appear to be small compared to Hanuman, who is moving gigantic boulders of rocks to build the ocean. So according to our capacity, when we give our all, Krishna sees, like in chapter 8, Prayers by Queen Kunti of Canto 1, it says there that Krishna is not only merciful to the sages, I think it's text 17, or text 20, he sees the sincerity of purpose. So it's talking there about even like the women in most religions, most societies, the women are the ones who are sitting right in front when they go to church or they go to any religious functions. And even though sometimes they may not be so well knowledgeable or well versed in scriptures, but because they are sincere. So it says that Krishna sees the sincerity of purpose. So it's not the external activity so much, even though we do our part, but it's Krishna sees what's in our heart. Just like it says there that we offer the food with love and devotion, and Krishna is accepting that loving devotion, that offering, not so much so the external offering. And in saying that, it's not that we neglect the offering and we don't make an effort to make the offering very beautiful, very opulent, and use all the choice ingredients to offer to the Lord. And one thing that also really stood out for me, I often hear Vaisheshika Prabhu in his Facebook classes, and also especially with the youth jam, he gets the devotees to offer a prayer, and they select a devotee. And whenever they say the prayers, at the end they say, the devotee requests a certain prayer and asks that maybe we take this knowledge to the fullest and maybe apply it, for example. And then at the end they finish with, if you so desire, my Lord. So that was so interesting, and often they say that, and I came across that when Uttara, she is the mother of King Parikshit, when he was in embryo in her stomach and Ashwatthama threw the Brahmastra weapon and he was going to kill the embryo, she ran to Krishna. She didn't take shelter of anyone else, like the Pandavas. She directly went to Krishna. She said, Krishna, Krishna Mahabaho, Krishna, please save me, please save my child in the womb if you so desire. So I was just feeling so enlivened hearing that also Prabhupada mentions there that Uttara said that please save this embryo if you so desire. So whenever we are suffering, it's not that we don't ask Krishna for help, but we also understand that or when devotees ask us to pray for their well-being or the well-being of their loved ones, we make that prayer and we wish for their spiritual and material success, for their health. And then we finish with, Krishna, please hear our prayers, and if you so desire, please heal this devotee or such like that. But not that we become despondent if the healing doesn't go on, because Krishna has a bigger plan that we don't understand. It's just like I was remembering when Urmila Mataji was in Auckland. I used to live at New Varshan, and she was saying that once they were living in a caravan years ago, and they were the only devotees who had a caravan, her husband, and at that time I think she had 2 kids, or maybe 3 at the time, all 3 were there. And she was saying that the temple president wanted their accommodation, and it was Radhashtami, and she had an offering for Radharani, and the temple president barred her from entering, even just to offering, and she was crying tears, and then they left that farm. It was New Vrindavan. So she was crying, and then years and years later, in hindsight, she realized that actually it was Krishna's mercy, because after that there was all that child abuse things that came up. So we don't know Krishna's plan. We don't know what is there in the future, why he's doing this, why we are suffering. But there's always a lesson, and Krishna is always doing everything for our best. And sometimes through the suffering, we take shelter, the sincere devotee takes more and more shelter of Krishna. And by taking more and more shelter of Krishna, we become more and more purified. So there's no loss. Even if we become healthy, we still take shelter of Krishna. And even through our struggles, we still keep going and doing our service according to what we are capable. Not that we neglect our health in the name of doing service. So we don't give up our thinking capacity and we don't follow blindly. We need to use our intelligence. Prabhupada said that everyone has to become a guru, meaning that everyone has to use their intelligence. Not that, oh, I'm very new, so I don't use my intelligence. But we can inquire in a humble mood if we don't understand something. And everyone's situation will be different. It's not that one size fits all. We have general guidelines, but then we also need to see, according to time, place, and circumstances, we need to adjust the situation. And also Vaisheshika Prabhu mentions how also according to the milestone or where we are in our life, if someone is young, has a young family, then yes, they may not be able to go as much to the temple. They need to maintain their family, but they shouldn't become despondent because they can still practice devotional service. And then when the children grow up, maybe they can give more and do more service at the temple, or do more preaching, go out and distribute books. So Krishna, he sees the sincerity of the heart. He sees the sincerity of purpose, and we need to always do everything, try to do everything we do to please Krishna and to please the devotees. And when we make a mistake, we try to rectify it and we keep going. And just like the example of a child, when a child is learning to walk and they fall down on their knees and they bruise themselves, they start crying. It's not that everyone else around starts laughing and then bullies them. No, everyone encourages them and they get up, and then eventually they'll start walking and they'll start running. Of course, that's an ideal example. In the material world, it's also sometimes very difficult, because if one is not on the path of God realization, then one is covered over by the material modes of, and greed, lust, anger, and they try to push others down in order to get on top. But when we come on the spiritual path, we know that when we lift others and we try to please Krishna, then our success is guaranteed. It's the example they say is when you help someone climb the mountain, you find yourself also on the mountain together with that person. So just like in yesterday's class, Nrsimha Kavach Prabhu was mentioning that we should see that everything we do is by Krishna's mercy. It's not that we are capable of doing anything, but it's by Krishna's mercy that we are capable of doing that service. So always understanding that Krishna is giving me the ability and the intelligence to carry out my activity. But also at the same time, we should also try to do things knowing that we're depending on Krishna's mercy. So we let Krishna, but we also act in such a way that we are taking responsibility, that if something goes wrong, I take responsibility that it's my fault. But understanding when there's success that, oh, this is Krishna's mercy, and that is the mood that will keep us humble and will keep us on the path of bhakti. And we see everything as the mercy of the Lord, and that He's giving us the intelligence, and He's the super soul in the heart. So when we have this conscience and we have this feeling in our heart sometimes, then we need to also listen to it. And sometimes if it's really not so in line with the scriptures, then we take guidance from the scriptures, we take guidance from the devotees and the spiritual master. And we also take guidance from the Chaita Guru, Krishna within the heart as the super soul. And we try to please Krishna and please the devotees, and then our success is guaranteed. And that's the secret of success, as Prabhupada mentioned. And even Arjuna in the battlefield of Kurukshetra, he didn't want to fight. But after hearing it, and he was given the choice by Krishna, he was hearing the Bhagavad Gita, the song of Krishna, then he chose his path. It's not that Krishna forces us to do anything, otherwise there's no question of love. But by Prabhupada's mercy, we have access to all this knowledge. We have the association of devotees. We have abundant service opportunities. And we have the choice of taking to Krishna consciousness or choosing Maya. But still, there's always hope for all of us, even though we fall down or we may be covered over, we fall into Maya. Krishna and his devotees are very merciful. And sometimes, sadly, we need to go through the suffering to get, sometimes it's said there that when we get the hard knocks of life, then we realize that there's no enjoyment in this world, that ultimately it's only Krishna. But I was listening to this class by Bhakti Swayam Bhagwan Maharaj. She was talking about, I think it was Prabodhananda Saraswati Thakur, was it? Prabodhananda Saraswati Thakur. He was saying that he sees the world as Sukhaya, that everything in the world is happy. And yet we hear the contradictory statement that this world is Dukhalayam, full of suffering and misery. It's because the great devotees, they see everything as a paraphernalia of the Lord, and they see everything is going on just perfectly because it is sanctioned by the Lord and it is to be utilized in the Lord's service. So it's just a matter of our angle of vision. Are we seeing it in the perspective of Krishna consciousness, or are we seeing it in the perspective of for our sense gratification? So how we see things, that will determine our progress or our falling down in this material world, spiraling down more or making progress on the path. So we always have this choice, we always have the opportunity, we have the prayers, and we can beg Krishna. I remember talking to Ambika Mataji, and she says that whenever they had difficulty, Prabhupada told them that you go in front of Gauranita, you go in front of Krishna Balaram, and you say, my dear lords, my dear sirs, this is my problem, I'm going through such and please help me. And please, one other, I'm not sure where I heard it, whether by Vaisheshika Prabhu or Bhakti Swayam Bhagwan Maharaj, where it says that we have this theoretical knowledge, but we also pray that please, Krishna, please help me to apply it in my life. Please help me, and really beg for that mercy. And still we find ourselves still struggling, then somehow or other, then unfortunately we learn through suffering. But still we take shelter of Krishna, whether we're suffering or we're happy in devotional service. We just stick to devotional service and we keep going on and keep trying to serve the devotees, keep trying to serve Krishna, and then our success is guaranteed. So end early today. If anyone has any questions, comments, corrections. Yes. Oh, we're just getting the microphone.
Hare Krishna, thanks for the class. I was just wondering one thing I really liked your points about devotees serving according to their capacity and the strength of their mind. I was just reading in the 11th canto yesterday in the purport, I think in the 3rd chapter, in the Yogendras, where the disciples of Prabhupada were making a point that one can tell someone's advancement in devotional or in Krishna consciousness based on 2 things. I forget what the first one was, but the second one was how much they can inspire other people to come to Krishna consciousness or bring them to Krishna consciousness. And I was just wondering if you could talk about that point in relation to also capacity, because some of the devotees, they have health challenges, or they can't be they can't like run a center or go out on books like 9 hours a day or something like that. So I'm just wondering if you have any thoughts on that.
Just my small realization is that when we just keeping in mind that we don't become despondent. So when we see others doing some nice service, we inspired by them, and then we also try to improve on the quality of our service. So I remember Swayam Bhagwan Maharaj, he was saying that when he went for Kartik last year or the year before, one of his classes, he said that he was thinking, how am I going to manage the service? You know, sometimes devotees during Kartik, they want to increase their number of rounds, chant more, read more. He said, then he was inspired by Krishna to improve the quality of his chanting. So he made that vow that I'm going to complete my 16 rounds in one sitting and really focus and pray. So we may not be able to do according to someone else, but we take inspiration from others and we try to improve the quality of our service. And Krishna is so kind. He's actually our best friend. He's in our heart. So we will definitely feel that satisfaction, just like a mother and her child. You know, the child will feel that satisfaction because the mother is pleased. The mother has different children with different capacities, but the mother loves all the children equally and she knows the capacity of each child. But if that child does the best they can, the mother is pleased, and then the child is also pleased. They won't compare themselves in the ideal world to the other siblings because they get that satisfaction, and then they inspire each other, they love each other, they take care of each other's siblings. So that was my small realization in increasing the quality of our service, whatever capacity we can do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
When you have a calling and you finally find in your heart you want to have Krishna, and you are having a very strong connection, you're trying to distance yourself from the material world and you're trying to get into the spiritual world and closer to Krishna. How do you convince your immediate family without upsetting them, without making them feel that we're deserving it? How can we do it without? I'm asking Krishna,
Yeah.
but I don't know the answer.
Actually, I'm smiling there because actually my sister and I, when we joined, she was 16 and I was 15, and we made the mistake of turning our parents away, and he said, we're not going to eat your cooking, we're not going to eat from the same plate, and that we were young and immature. But now here also there's a very amazing devotee. His name is Vaisheshika Prabhu, and he's a disciple of Srila Prabhupada. So I listen to his classes on Facebook. He's got a page called Fan the Spark, Vaisheshika Prabhu, and he often gets this question because he has a big congregation. And he says that, because in the past also, the Prabhupada disciples, they also made that mistake of shunning their family. And then it's, and I realized with my parents also, even though we're coming from an Indian background, they fear that you're going to give up everything, you're going to go to Vrindavan, you're going to give up your material life, you're not going to get married, you're not going to have any children. So that fear is there that they're going to lose you also to Krishna. So, but when they see that Vaisheshika Prabhu says, you just keep being kind to them, they see that you're still the normal person, but actually you're even better and you're more happy, and you're now doing things more conscientiously, not getting annoyed or upset. Then they see we don't have to force them. And sometimes it's the hardest to try to convince your immediate close family and friends, but just by seeing that you are practicing and you are happy, and by the association of devotees, they will gradually, their heart will change. But it may take time, can take many years. Like for my sister and I, due to our circumstances, we had to move away and leave them. But when my sister got married in New Zealand, my parents came over, and My brother-in-law, he's a devotee, so he respected them so much, and actually she married a Western-bodied devotee, so that was a big shock in itself as well, because we are Indian-bodied. So, but he was very respectful and even more cultured than in some of us. So it's not the external body that matters, it's the internal, the culture. So he was very respectful to them. He actually bowed down to my father, who's not a devotee, who's eats meat. So, and then they saw all the devotees, how kind they were. They were very friendly to my parents. They gave them lifts to go to the temple, to go to the programs. And then they actually turned around, and now they're so proud of us that we became, not that we are devotees, but we chose Krishna consciousness. They're so proud of us that we chose the right path. So sometimes we think of it is natural that you feel the urgency because you have now got that treasure and you want to share it with your family and you want them to take it up, but we can't. It's just like we can't shove it down anyone's throat. Love comes naturally. We can't point a gun at anyone. So you just keep continuing, be happy how you are, and don't be any different to them in terms of loving exchanges, even though may be different in terms of certain practices, like we offer our food and we don't eat onions and garlic, things like that. But in everything else, it will take time, and just by them seeing that we are normal human beings, we are also functioning in the world. It's not that devotees give up their jobs or their education. I went on to university as an adult in Auckland, and I got a degree in education. And we have many devotees who are professionals, who are engineers, doctors, pharmacists. So it's not that we give up our material situation, but we engage that in Krishna's service. The doctor can also treat patients, and if they're favorable, they can give Prabhupada's books, So we just need to be a little bit patient, and I understand where you're coming from because I went through that, and I made that mistake of pushing my parents away.
Thank you very much.
So any other questions or comments? Correction. Okay, thank you very much. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai.